Look closely at the player directing traffic in the center of the world's most heavily scrutinized pitch. The central mastermind driving Spain's entire 2026 World Cup campaign is an 18-year-old kid. To understand exactly how jarring this is, look at the historical timeline. At exactly 18 years and 361 days old, Yamal's precise age today. To put that age into perspective, we have to look at the historical data. At this exact biological milestone, Zinedine Zidane was still navigating the youth ranks at Cannes, years away from his first international knockout minute. Xavi Hernandez was similarly restricted to domestic reserve football, still developing the spatial awareness that would later define his career. And Andres Iniesta was a prospect in the lower tiers of the Spanish league system, yet to face the pressure of senior international competition. This chart reveals a staggering gap. Combined, those three legends possessed exactly 0 minutes of international knockout experience at this age. Yamal, by contrast, is logging hundreds of minutes as Spain's tactical focal point. These metrics indicate that Yamal's current performance level deviates from established developmental curves in modern sports science. Yamal's absolute lack of panic traces back to a specific postal code, 304. This is Rocafonda, an impoverished neighborhood in Catalonia, where his psychological blueprint was forged in concrete cage football. The ground reality of the cage is brutal. If you slow down, you get hit. When you spend your formative years playing in a highly congested concrete box, where 3 defenders collapse on you the millisecond you touch the ball, a sprawling, pristine World Cup stadium feels like an infinite expanse of luxury. Navigating those high-pressure, low-margin alleys developed an internal calm that effectively eliminates the psychological shock of a World Cup debut. He can process high-stakes tactical information because his brain has already survived much tighter spaces. For the past decade, Spanish football has been trapped in an ideological crisis. The legendary tiki-taka system devolved into a sterile loop, endless horizontal passing across the midfield, dominating possession without ever creating a real vertical threat. Opposing managers figured out a highly reliable countermeasure. They instructed their teams to drop into a dense, compact, low block. By packing the penalty box with bodies, they forced Spain to pass the ball harmlessly around the perimeter until the clock ran out. To break that passive cycle, Spain needed a structural lever, a player who could manually manipulate the shape of an opposing defense and drag them out of their rigid formations. Yamal's verticality forces a defensive realignment that Spain previously lacked. By isolating defenders on the wing, he provides the specific tactical friction needed to destabilize a modern low block. The primary flaw in almost every young winger in modern football history is tunnel vision. When an average 18-year-old receives the ball under heavy pressure, their cognitive load spikes. Their brain zeroes in entirely on the ball and the immediate physical threat, narrowing their field of vision to a fraction of the pitch. Yamal's spatial processing system defies traditional curves. Tracking data shows a scan rate of 3.4 head turns every 5 seconds before receiving a pass. He maps pitch coordinates, calculating the covering defender's speed, the fullback's position, and precise exit vectors into space. This rapid spatial mapping fuels his biomechanics. Because he already knows where the space will open, he can execute what analysts call micro-touches, lightning-fast alterations to the ball's direction using the inside and outside of his left boot. This specific trait verifies why former Manchester United captain Nemanja Vidic's comparison of Yamal to a mini Messi is tactically accurate. It's a shared biomechanical profile.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and motivate us for bringing more amazing content.
Yamal intentionally baits defenders into reaching for the ball, tracks their center of gravity, and alters direction at the exact millisecond they commit their weight to a tackle. When you combine elite spatial awareness with flawless micro-touch execution, you create a player who is mechanically impossible to defend in a one-on-one situation. To measure the true scale of his influence, we have to perform a clinical autopsy on the round of 16 clash in Dallas against Portugal. For 89 minutes, the Portuguese low block completely suffocated Spain's central midfield. Average managers usually tell their wingers to cut inside to find space in these situations. Instead, Luis de la Fuente gave a counterintuitive instruction. He ordered Yamal to glue his boots to the extreme right touchline and stay completely wide. By staying wide, Yamal generated massive tactical gravity. Portugal couldn't risk leaving their left back isolated. When Yamal received the ball, a second defender sprinted out to double-team him. Yamal absorbed the pressure, waiting for the mathematical equilibrium of the pitch to flip. That patience paid off in the 90th minute. With minds and legs exhausted, Portugal's left back overcommitted his weight by exactly 3 inches to block a potential run down the touchline. That 3-inch shift was the microfracture Yamal was waiting for. Instead of a low-percentage shot, he executed a diagonal pass straight into the space the shifting defenders had just abandoned, setting up the match-winning goal. Portugal's defensive system remained structurally sound for nearly 90 minutes. They were eventually undone by an 18-year-old's discipline to weaponize the defender's own movements against them. Yamal's tactical gravity creates a cascading effect across the entire pitch. By anchoring multiple markers to the right wing, he manually clears massive corridors for players like Nico Williams to exploit on the opposite flank. But the ground reality of tournament football is that an aggressive attacking system requires a flawless insurance policy. That positional security is provided by Rodri, who anchors the midfield pivot and protects the space behind the attacking line. Behind him, goalkeeper Unai Simon has quietly orchestrated a monumental streak of over 600 minutes without conceding a goal. Yamal has the freedom to take spatial risks because Spain has built an ironclad defensive platform behind him. Now, that entire possession matrix faces an immediate stress test in the Los Angeles quarterfinal. Spain is about to collide with a radically different tactical beast, the Belgian national team. Belgium will not afford Yamal the luxury of methodical spatial scanning. Their blueprint relies heavily on physical intimidation. They will look to cut off his supply lines, double-team him with aggressive fullbacks, and drop their defensive line deep enough to completely erase his preferred exit vectors. The match comes down to a definitive tactical question. Can an 18-year-old brain process the pitch's spatial geometry fast enough to survive 90 minutes of raw physical attrition? Looking past the immediate horizon of the World Cup, we have to examine the corporate ground reality of Yamal's long-term career at FC Barcelona. Right now, he is protected by a symbolic €1 billion release clause. But football is governed by raw cash flow, and Barcelona's financial infrastructure remains a fragile ecosystem. Relentless economic pressure over the next few seasons could eventually force an unthinkable boardroom conversation. If the club fails to balance its wage parameters, Yamal transitions from a protected sporting asset into the most valuable financial lifeline in global sport, commanding a realistic open market valuation of over €190.9 million. If economic reality forces a transaction, the destination matrix is exceptionally narrow. Based on purely tactical alignment, he fits the specific requirements of Pep Guardiola's highly sophisticated positional framework at Manchester City. Beyond City, there are only 2 other realistic entities capable of securing him: Mikel Arteta's cognitively demanding project at Arsenal, or Paris Saint-Germain, who possess the capital reserves required to execute a 9-figure transfer without breaking their financial structure. Yamal represents a significant capital asset capable of addressing the club's long-term financial structure, and the economic future of the global market is now dictated by a teenager's left boot. How do you see the quarterfinal playing out tomorrow? Will Belgium's physical press fracture Yamal's possession matrix, or will he carry Spain into the semifinals? And if Barcelona's financial reality forces a sale, which European giant will secure his signature? Drop your tactical verdicts and transfer predictions in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to the Playbook as we continue to break down the 2026 World Cup.